If you enjoy learning the Cherokee language with RSU TV, join our Signal Society. Your monthly gift of $10 a month ensures that RSU TV can continue to produce programs like the Cherokee language classes. Click the link in the description or call 1-800-823-7210 to join today.
God. So welcome back to Cherokee 2 here at RSU TV. We're really I'm really glad to be here today, and I hope you're glad to be tuning in. So hopefully you've gone through Cherokee 1 already, and there's a lot of good information there. Also, I hope you've been keeping up with your syllabary, because we're going to use quite a bit of syllabary in this course. And so without further ado, let's just talk about kind of how this course is going to be run and what you can kind of expect from this class. All right, so what I want you to do when you're watching these classes, and we talked about this in Cherokee 1, I teach a little bit differently maybe than some of the other language classes that you're used to, but I really want you to concentrate on meaning, concentrate on the understanding what's going on, rather than memorizing a whole bunch of individual words. I think this is going to be the most beneficial to you, particularly if you're taking this class with the hopes of being able to interact in the language. This is going to be your best strategy for taking the class. Now, for those of you that are kind of type 1 personalities, or you need to have something in front of you, then I'll have a list of notes in the back, and you can transcribe those and pause and do all that kind of thing to have make yourself some flashcards if you want. I'm certainly not going to tell you not to do that, but really the way the course is organized is for you to really concentrate on being in the moment, just as if you were in conversation with a real speaker. So I want you to concentrate on meaning. Don't worry so much about memorizing every single word that we present you with, okay? Also, I want you to have fun. I want you to have a good time. Language is better remembered when it's attached to positive memories and things like that. So we want you to enjoy yourself. Don't sweat it too much. And it is a difficult language, and I just want you to remember that I'm a second language learner as well. I'm not a first language speaker. I grew up around first language speakers, but I'm a learner as well, and so there will be times that we will learn together. And that's another important aspect of this class is as often as possible I will have first language speakers. If you were in Cherokee 1, you'll remember that we had Melvina Shot Pouch, we had Kathy Sierra, we had Phyllis Six Killer, we had Miss Peggy Gertie Flute. We had several speakers that all came and helped us in our class, and we're going to do that again this time so that you can hear different dialects, you can hear first language speakers, and we can talk about maybe some of the differences or the way that they would say things as opposed to how somebody else would say things. And in every lesson, I always try to make sure and kind of run it by a first language speaker, because this is a difficult language, and I just want to make sure that we're doing it to the best of our ability. Okay, so this time we're going to do a few different things. Hopefully, by the end of this course, you're going to be able to introduce yourself in Cherokee. Hopefully you'll be able to and I'll kind of go through a model conversation or a model introduction, the kinds of things that we're going to go over. Also, we're going to learn some common phrases to use at home. I know in Cherokee 1 we talked about my niece, which she is now my daughter. And these are Cherokee phrases that I use with her around the house all the time. These are phrases that you can kind of just memorize and use them straight as is with people in your household. That's really the best way to really get comfortable with the language is to be around it and use it and have other people in your household that use it as well. So once you learn a new vocabulary for something, you know, try and maybe replace your English with that. And we'll talk about that a little more as we go on. And we're also going to be exposed to a lot more Cherokee through stories and songs, because to me, these are the best ways to really get the rhythm of the language, the sound of the language. And studies also show that songs and stories are some of the most effective ways to acquire the Cherokee language. All right? So, Idalena, let's begin. Talagi idi woni. Let's talk in Cherokee, all right? So this is an example of the kind of thing, if you were going to introduce yourself in Cherokee, this is probably some of the things that you might say. You would want to know, you would want to greet everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is, if you have a Cherokee name, you might say, my Cherokee name is, I am blank years old. Of course, some people won't do that, but we're going to learn how to say it anyway. Whether you use that in your introduction or not, that's completely up to you. I am Cherokee. We're also going to talk about ideas like being full blood, being half. I am not Cherokee because I know there are people that use the language. When I was a kid, I knew people who were not Cherokee but spoke Cherokee, and I think that's really, really great. And so we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about the difference between how Cherokee people think about being Indian or being Cherokee and kind of the more European viewpoint of Cherokee-ness, I guess, is the best way. And we're going to talk about I am from, where you're from or where you grew up, where you were born, and where I live now, because many of you maybe don't live in the same place where you were born. So we'll talk about the difference between those kinds of things. We'll talk about where you work, or if you're a student, how to say I'm a student. And then in Cherokee, a lot of times we'll either talk about clans, although our clan system has degenerated to a large extent, but a lot of times we'll talk about who our family is, who our moms and dads are, who our grandparents are. That's a really, really common way to establish connection in the Cherokee world, is to talk about our family, who our families are. And that's kind of a typical greeting in Cherokee, and whether you're married or single or, you know, looking or dating or all those kinds of things. So those are the kinds of things that you can expect that we're going to do whenever you do your introduction, all right? Okay, so we're going to start our first Cherokee portion just like we started in Cherokee 1. This will be sort of a little bit of a review for you. So we have da wadon or da guadon. That means is my name, all right? Depending on the community, some people say da wadon, some people say da guadon. It means the exact same thing. Some people even say da wadon da guadon They put an at the end. They're all completely understandable ways of saying is my name. And they're understandable by every community. They would understand which one. I tend to say da wadon. I think let da wadon. Yep. When somebody asks de jadon, that means is your name. So they may ask gato usti de jadon, right? And we learned the sign for name which is just 2 fingers and 2 fingers, and you tap them together, and this means name. Okay, so Dawadong, my name, Dejadong, your name. Somebody might ask you, Kata uste Dejadong, what's your name? Or they may just say Do Dejadong, and it's just a shortened way of asking what your name is. Du dong, or du dong means is his or her name. Okay, and I think we learned that whenever we talked about, I think we learned the bingo song in Cherokee 1, bingo du dong, right? Bingo was his name, and du dong. All right, so as I said, we're going to use quite a bit of syllabary in this class. So we're going to look at the syllabary here. And so if you look at the very, very first, you see da, and then we have wa, do, and then alternatively you could say da, qua, do, Okay, so this is what it looks like in syllabary. Da, wa, don, da, qua, don, Either one is perfectly fine. And, you know, some people, it seems like, do it different ways. Underneath, I have just a short little set of sentences that use the syllabary characters that we have up above. So we have this one here, the one that looks like a letter G, that's wa. So down here, this would be wa. And then the V is do, wa don. Okay? And wa don, of course, for us here in Oklahoma, that means thank you. Now, if you live Cherokee back east, they would say shki. Okay, but we here in Oklahoma, we usually use the word wa don. Sometimes this has come up when people are looking at documents, they'll see this V in other people's writing, and they'll see it upside down, kind of like a letter A without the crossbar on it. It's still do, but some people, we tend to, at Cherokee Nation, we tend to call that the old do, because that was, in a lot of the old writings, it was inverted like that. And at some point over the course of us using the language, the do got turned the other way, like a letter V. And so that's what we see more commonly. However, there was kind of a trend to go back to that old do. So we do have, sometimes you will see this V turned the other way, and it still means do, it still means the same thing, but just be aware that you may come across it whenever you start doing your own learning and research. So that first word, wa don. Okay, then the next one looks like a letter D, that's ah, and then a letter J, da, da. Okay, and we learned that in Cherokee 1, it means wood, da. Okay, and then da, wa, don, da, wa, don, is my name. So wa don, da, wa, don, thank you, wood is my name. So, which could possibly be a Cherokee person's name, da. Okay, so that's just to give you a little bit of practice with your syllabary. We're gonna really look at syllabary quite a bit, because I know I need the practice, and I'm sure you can use the practice as well. So I'll challenge myself to use the syllabary more often, and hopefully challenge you to do the same. All right? So we're going to sing. This is a song that we've done already in Cherokee 1, but we're going to review it because it's a great song. But I've made one change. And so let's look through. So, di no gi, di no gi. That means let's sing. Let's talk about it first. It says co, gado, usti, de don. Okay, Then it has a blank spot and it says da wa don, and then a blank spot. And then what is that next one? Yeah, da wa don. Good. And then there's another blank down here, and then it says di ge gun, di ge gun. Okay, and that means I am from. In the original version of the song, we would say ginali ge sesti. Let's be friends, right? But I recently taught this song to a group of elementary school kids, and we decided to use the digega. Digega means to be from, all right? And so, of course, in my case, I'm going to say Clay Gong. Clay Gong. Clay Gong is the town of J. So I would say Clay Gong Digega. I'm from J. And of course, you're going to use whatever town you are from. Now, you can either use the name of that town in English, or if you know what the name of the town is in Cherokee, you can use the Cherokee. For example, Claremore, you can say Galemo, Galemo, Digega. I'm from Claremore. All right, so let's go ahead and we'll sing it just a couple times. So it's Didi Nogi, Sawu, Tal, Jong. C-O, C-O, Gado Usti Deja Do. C-O, C-O, Gado Usti Deja Do. We da wado, we da wado, Klaiko digegam. Okay, so that's how that works with the new addition of digega. Okay, you can also say digeg, but it fits in the song better if you say digega. Okay, so that's the CO song. So that should be a review for you, and it's a good little song just to remember how to say what is your name, hello, and my name is, and now you'll know how to say I'm from, right? Digega. All right. Now, for our first Cherokee like household phrase, or this is a command in this case, all right? So this was probably one of the first ones that my daughter learned. It's he ye gi. He ye gi. He ye gi. That means wake up. He ye gi. So in the morning, when I would get her up for the day, I would say, Hiegi. Okay? Hadita, get up. Okay? Hiegi means to wake up. Hadita means to get up. All right? Hiegi. Now under here, we have some extra sentences that just kind of use this same wake up concept. So it says, Chanela. Agieja Sahi Chigesa. Okay, so Chanela Agieja Sahi Chigesa. So normally we would say Chanel Agieja Chigesa. Okay, so you notice that a lot of those extra sounds on the end, we just tend to kind of leave them off. Chanel Agieja. I woke up. Agieja means I woke up. Sanjagesa. Sanjagesa means yesterday. Sanjagesa. Chanel, of course, is the number 8. Chanel or chanela. Okay. The next sentence says, Johnny Gal Gogi De Yeja Sanalei. Okay, Johnny, John, Galgogi, Galgogi, that's the number 7, Galgog or Galgogi. Deyeja, he will wake up, or he's waking up, Deyeja. Sunale, sunale. So we learned sanjagesa yesterday, sunale tomorrow. okay? Sunale, okay? Sunale, tomorrow. All right, so those are just some extra sentences from hiyegi, wake up. Okay, so hopefully you are. So hiyegi. So try to use that, you know, in your conversations. It's a fairly short word. It's not too difficult to say. Hiyegi. My daughter, when she was learning, she liked to play this game, and she would tell me to pretend to be asleep, and then she would scream in my ear, hiyegi. So I'm very, very familiar with this word because she would scream it at the top of her lungs in my ear, just for fun. So today we're going to talk about a traditional story, all right? We're going to talk about a story between these two creatures. We have right here, we have Jutli. And the sign language for Jutli is to like make an okay sign, and you kind of like put it on your nose and wiggle it back and forth. That's Jutli, okay, Jutli. And then the next one is a G-stun or G-stun. A lot of people where I come from like to eat G-stun. They're really, really good to eat. We catch them in the creeks and we boil them up or we fry them up, and they're good to eat. So this story is a traditional story, traditional Cherokee story about Jutli, Ale, G-stun. Okay? So here is the story in phonetics. It says, Ilahiyu jagesa, Jutli, Ale, G-stun, Anehe. Okay? Ilahiyu jagesa means a long time ago. Ilahiyu jagesa. You'll hear a lot of stories start this way. Ilahiyu jagesa, long time ago. Jutli, fox. Ale and G-stun, crawdad, Anehe. They existed. So in English that kind of makes sense to modern people, says a long time ago there was a fox and a crawdad. Ilahiyu jagesa, Jutli, Ale, G-stun, Anehe. Okay? The next one, this says Jutli, and what was Jutli again? This is a fox, right? Ale, G-stun, and G-stun is crawdad. Un togiyastana. It's a big long word. Un togiyastana. Untokiyastana. Okay? And that means they raced. Okay? They had a race. Okay? Jutli, Ale, G-stun, Untokiyastana. They had a race. Right? The next one says Unlenahe, G-stun, Wajiniyasela, Jutli, Gani, Doctor. Okay? So Unlenahe, when it started, Unlenahe means to start. Okay? So Unlenahe, that he at the end means it happened in the past. So when it started, Unlenahe, G-stun. Now is G-stun the fox or the crawdad? G-stun, that's the crawdad, okay? And this is actually the sign for a lobster, but I couldn't find a sign for crawdads. So if you know what the sign for crawdad is, you know, track me down and tell me what it is. So, but for now, we're going to use this because that seems pretty apt for a G stun. So G stun. So un le ne hai, okay? When it started, un le ne hai, G stun, okay? Wa ji ni ye se la, wa ji ni ye se la. Jutli, this is fox, jutli. Gani dot da. So what do you think gani dot da? What do you think this is? Based on the hand motion, what do you think gani dot da might be? Gani dot da, that means the tail, okay? Wajiniya sela, wajiniya sela, wajiniya sela means grabbed it. He grabbed it. So, un le ne hai, when it started, jisten wajiniya sela, jutli gani dot da. So when it started, the crawdad wajiniya sela, jutli gani dot da, he grabbed the fox's tail. Okay? Wajiniya sela, jutli gani dot da. Okay? The next one. Ji stun wu kitla jutli gani dot da. Okay? So we have Ji stun again. Wu kitla. I believe we talked about u kitle or u kitla in Cherokee 1. That means to be up on something, but it can also wukitla can mean to ride or like to straddle. So you can use wukitla when you're talking about solguil wukitla, rode a horse, or a bicycle, motorcycle, anything that you can kind of straddle. So I guess you could say gano sost wukitla, right, for like a witch riding a broom, right? That would be like riding a broom. So ji stun wukitla jutli gani dot da. So the crawdad rode the fox's tail. Ji stun wukitla jutli gani dot da. Okay? The next part of the story says Wunisquat Antokiaska. Antokiaska. This is a race, by the way, or to race. Antokiaska. Okay, so Wunisquat Antokiaska. Jistan Wudlosa Jutli gani dot da. Okay? So Wunisquat. So what do you think Wunisquat might be? Antokiaska. So when it finished, so for example, when you're eating, you can say gee squat, or whenever you're doing homework and you finish your homework, you say gee squat, I'm done, right? Or sometimes I'll ask my daughter when she's eating her food, I'll say, Hisquatas, are you finished? You know. So Wunisquat, when they finished, Antokiaska, the race, Jistan Wudlosa, got off, Wudlosa, Jutli gani dot da. He got off. Hopefully you understand Jutli gani dot da. Okay? Then it says Jistan udatlose eliske na jutli. Okay? So Jistan udatlose. Udatlose. This means to win. Udatlose. So Jistan udatlose won. He won. Eliske thought na jutli. The fox. So the fox eliske jistan udatlose. So the fox thought that the crawdad had won. Asehno, but Aseno Gistan Ulonu Hetle. Ulonu Hetle. Okay, this is to cheat, by the way. Ulonu Hetle. Ulonu Hetle. Ulonu Hetle. Okay? Ulonu Hetle. Cheated. So, Aseno, but Gistan Ulonu Hetle. He cheated. Okay? Jutli Wajia Gistan. Jutli Wajia Gistan. Okay? You can also use the word uge. Okay? And we're going to talk about that here in just a second. The difference between wajia and uge. So in Cherokee 1, you might, we learned about agia, to eat it, right? Chigi. I'm eating something. Or uge, he ate it. Okay? This word wajia, this is when something eats something else that's alive. Okay, so it's like he gobbled it up, right? So this wajia can be used when a carnivore is eating another animal. Okay, and of course that's what happened in this story, because jutli wajia Gistan. But you could use the word uge if you want. But wajia is a little bit more descriptive than just the word uge, okay? But if you use the word uge, speakers know what you mean, okay? So it's not wrong. Just wajia is a little more descriptive and a little more specific about what was going on, because we have jutli wajia gistan. Okay. Now, if jutli wajia quanena, a banana, that wouldn't work, right? We would have to use the word uge, because a banana is not another animal, right? So we would have, in that case, we would have to use the word uge. All right, so let's take a look in phonetics of the entire story, the way we have it. And we're going to talk a little bit about it. So I'm going to read it a few times through. This first time I read it through, I'm going to read it at pretty much kind of a regular speaking pace. And then I'm going to read it slower, and then I'm going to read it again at a regular pace. And all I want you to do is I want you to, obviously you probably know kind of what happened in the story. This is a really, really short story. And I like this because you can hopefully, if you listen to this, that's kind of the nice thing about this program, is that it's available at any time. And based on Cherokee 1, I've heard a lot of people say, oh, you know, I'll put it on while I'm driving to work and listen to it through my car radio or that kind of thing. And that's really, really good, because the more hours of exposure that you can get either through here or through the Cherokee radio show or anything where you can hear Cherokee spoken, the more you can do that, the better and the quicker you will acquire the language. That's what studies have shown. So, and then as you go through it, and if you've done it enough, then maybe someday you could get up and you could tell this entire story, which is a traditional story. It's one of our old stories. You could tell this entire story all in the Cherokee language. And you could do it just right here, simply in these, less than 10 sentences. We told it a whole story. So we will look at this story again, and we'll add more details to it, and we'll make it more rich and more, but this is a good way to start, okay? So, if you want to close your eyes and just listen and hear and try to picture in your mind what's going on as I'm saying the words, that's probably a good strategy, all right? Ilahiu jgesa, jutli ale gistan anehe, jutli ale gistan untoki yastana, unlena he gistan wajiniya sela, jutli kani dada, gistan wuketla, jutli kani dada, wunisquat antoki yaska, gistan wudlosa jutli kani dada, gistan udatlose eliske na jutli, aseno gistan ulonu hetle, jutli wajiya na gistan. Okay, so that's pretty much in a conversational speed the whole story. Didn't take very long to tell. Let's go back through it, and I will tell it a little bit slower so that you can follow along. So you can follow along, you know, with your finger or with your eyes or whatever, or you can just again listen and try to remember what that word indicates, what action that word indicates. So, ilahiu jigesa jutli ale gistan anehe, jutli ale gistan untokiyastana, unlena he gistan wajiniya sela, jutli kani dada, gistan wukitla, jutli kani dada, wuni squat antokiyaska, gistan wudlosa jutli kani dada, gistan udatlose eliske na jutli, aseno gistan ulonu hetle, jutli wajiya na gistan. All right, so that's pretty slow, and probably for some of you that maybe might not even be, that might still be too fast for you, and that's okay. That's one of the difficult things about encountering Cherokee in the real world, is that a lot of times it just kind of goes by, your ears really, really quickly, and they don't slow it down. So we'll talk a little bit about what our mouths are doing. We'll talk a little bit about maybe some of the different words. You'll notice in this, let's take, for example, wajiniya sela, wajiniya sela. Wajiniya sela means to grab onto something. Wajiniya sela, wajiniya sela. That w sound. In Cherokee 1, we talked about that W sound in relation to meaning that it's something going away from you, right? We learned the word a-e, right, which means to walk. But wa-e means to walk away from you, okay? Or you can say gadog means to stand, gadog. We gadog means they're standing away from you, okay? We can say we chok tahun, okay? Or huak taste means to turn away from you, okay? So that W sound indicates a motion that's happening away from you. But the interesting thing about Cherokee is that not only can that W sound talk about something that's done in physical distance away from you, but it can also indicate a distance of time as well. So because this story is told in the past, you'll notice a lot of the verbs in the story start with that W sound because it indicates that it's happening at a distance in time. Okay? So we have, for example, wajini sela, right? Wajini sela, to grab up. We have wukitla. We have wukitla, which means to ride. Okay? We have wuni squat, when they finished. Okay? Wudlosa, to get off. Okay? Then we have waji ya'an, he ate him. Right? So you see in this story that W sound a lot. And I know even though I knew, when I first started trying to learn conversational Cherokee, I used a grammar approach. And so I had studied this grammar rule that the W sound, was talking about a distance both in space and time. But it never clicked for me until I started doing stories like this and seeing it actually used in a real application, because that's just how my brain kind of works. And so hopefully this will help you. So as you see those, you'll know that we're talking about a distance in time. And then you'll see these this V, or you'll see an E, eh. Those both indicate the past tense. It means something that already happened. In this case, you cannot leave those sounds out because then it changes the meaning, okay? So that's why those and eh have to be there, because it talks about the past tense and we have to know that. So, real quickly, let's try, I will do my best, let's try to read through it in Syllabary this time, okay? So I will read it fairly slow and we'll try to follow along and see if you can read it as well. So it says, Ilahiyu chigesa, Ilahiyu chigesa, Jukli. So you see those two characters there, that little looks like a half note and a letter C. That's Jutli. That means fox. Jutli. Ale Gistana, Gistana, or Gistan. Anehe. There was. Jutli. Ale Gistana. Una Dogiastana. Now this is where it helps if you know the language a little bit. So if I were to read this and didn't know what the word was, I would say una dogiastana, and that wouldn't make any sense. But if I say un togiastana, okay, un togiastana, racing. Okay, untoki yastana. So that V can make a do sound or a to sound depending on the word that it's in. Una lena he. Started. Gistun. Wajinia sela. Grabbed, wajinia sela. Jutli, gani dot. ga, ni, da, da. Ga, ni, da, da. Tail. Ji, sturna. Wu, gi, la. That's what it says there, wu, gi, and la. But I know wu, ki, la, wu, ki, la. Okay? That Y can either make a gi sound or a ki sound. Okay? In this case, it's a ki. Wu, ki, la. Ju, tli. Ga, ni, da, da. Wu, ni, squat, da. Wu, ni, squat, da. Wu, ni, squat, da. Ana, do, gi, yas. Ka. Ana, do, gi, yas. Ka. Okay, and again, that V sound can make a do or a to, so we'd say an to gi yaska, an to gi yaska, race. G stunna, woodlosa, got off, woodlosa, jutli, gani da. G stunna, udadlose, okay. Eliske na jutli, thought, the fox. Aseno, gistena, ulonu hetle, ulonu hetle. He cheated. Jutli. Wajia, na ji stun. Okay? So that's reading through it in Cherokee. So real quick, as I promised, in the couple minutes that we have left, here is your word list. These are some words that I think that you could take from the story and use them. So we have jutli, fox. We have jistun, crawdad. We have untoki yastana, they raced. Unlenahe, they started. Ganidata, a tail. Wajiniya sela, he grabbed it. Wu kitla, he rode on it. Wu ni squatda, they finished. Wu tlosa, he got off of it. Udatlose, he won it. Eliske, he thought. Ulonu hetle, he cheated. And wajiya, he ate it, something living. All right? So I believe that that is all the time that we have for today. I hope that you enjoyed this story, and we're going to learn more about our friends, Jutli and Jistun, coming in the future. And so be ready to learn more about this story in later lessons. So until then, wadon, jadok sos,